Hi everyone, welcome to another lecture of mine now. Excuse me for any stammering, stuttering, anything like that. I've been trying to record this lecture since yesterday. I'm really nervous, of course. And then beyond being nervous, the other thing is that the person that this lecture is about, Mr. Ted Hughes, uh, everybody who may have known me at any period of time in life would know that I'm a fan, uh, and not just a fan, but somebody who is like perhaps madly in love with the work that he's done. He was a poet laureate, but that's not the reason why I am such a big fan of his. It's just about his work. As the title of the series says, Ted Hughes. So we're just going to be doing an extensive study in the form of lectures on Hughes. Um I'm going to be referring to this book by Jonathan Bate, The Unauthorized Life of Ted Hughes, which was also shortlisted for Samuel Johnson Prize. Excuse me for that. As I said, I'm nervous. So yeah, it's a book published by William Collins, and it's a very extensive read on Hughes. Has a lot of details on his life, so we're going to be referring to that constantly for the series of this lectures. And then, of course, I also have happen to have a printout because back when I first got a printer in my life. Uh, like I know this is like a side story, but this happens in lectures sometimes. So when I got my first printer in life, uh, although this is not a product of that, I think so. This is someone else who had printed this out for me. But this is what I would do. I still have a lot of printouts from that time. This is what I would do. I would print out like poems in form of collections uh, and then annotate them and make notes of them and stuff like that, and then play teacher with that. I don't know if everybody has done that at some point of time in their life, or actually also sometimes try to teach my sister some of that. But Ted Hughes is somebody whose name I think my family might very clearly know of. Love his work, and I hope that with this series of lectures, you guys are able to love him like that too. He said a quote, which some say he said in appreciation for his wife, but that kind of also shows his own pride in the work that he used to do or he has done, which is poetry is the voice of spirit and imagination, and all that is potential, as well as of the healing benevolence that used to be the privilege of the gods. I think that's something that clearly explains his own pride in the power of his pen, and obviously like he was a fan of Plath, and so even if he said it for Plath, I think it makes complete sense. Uh, he was one of the giants of the 20th century uh, British poetry, because, of course, he was appointed as a poet laureate. He graced the earth with his presence from 1930 to 1998. Sadly, I couldn't get a chance to meet him. And he was born in Yorkshire in 1930. And excuse me for any background noise. He served in the Royal Air Force. Then he attended Cambridge, where he studied archaeology and anthropology. He took special interest in myths and legends. In 1956, he met and married the American poet Sylvia Plath, who encouraged him to submit his manuscript to a first book contest run by the Poetry Center, where, of course, his poem The Hawk in the Rain, which was published in 1957, earned him the reputation that it did. as a poet of international stature. According to poet and critique, now Robert Bernard Shaw, I know, is a very well-known poet, but very few might know that he's also a very, very, very good critique when it comes to literature. Um, so Robert Bernard Shaw said that Hughes's poetry signaled a dramatic departure from the prevailing modes of the period. The stereotypical poem of the time was determined not to risk too much, politely domestic in its subject matter, understated and mildly ironic in style. By contrast, Hughes marshaled a language of nearly Shakespearean resonance to explore themes which were mythic and elemental. Um, Firstly, I know that people might be like, but any poet can say anything about somebody else. Why am I quoting this? Because very few might know that they're very extensive reads, which I have never had access to, and I'm sure like a lot of audience watching this video will also never have access to. Um, by Robert Bernard Shaw, which are there in, I think, Oxford libraries and Cambridge libraries, and they're all like, um, and they're all some of the most amazing criticisms that you can read about the work that we already know, and can push you to think of things from a direction that you may have never even imagined. Uh, okay. Coming back to this criticism, so Hughes' poetry signaled a dramatic departure from the prevailing modes of the period because of the fact that everybody was writing on sort of the same lines, right? The thing about human emotions was was a very prevalent theme too. But with Hughes, he started talking about things also uh, on the phenomena level of things. Like for example, with something like The Hawk in the Rain, you will realize that he's not talking about just feelings. He's talking about a phenomena in the world. So that way, it was a dramatic departure, and then of course, the stereotypical poem of the time was determined not to risk too much, and it was politely domestic in its subject matter. Um, it was understated and mildly ironic in style, but Hughes, he marshaled a language of nearly Shakespearean resonance. Why do I say nearly Shakespearean resonance? Because, like for example, there's a quote by Hughes which says something on the lines of. There's a quote by Shakespeare which is something on the lines of "to be or not to be," right? Now, if you listen to it like that, to be or not to be, it's just 6 words. But when you read it and when you understand it, to be or not to be, you're like, what? Because that one line has so much depth. Similarly, Hughes, I'd give this reference of Six Young Men, which is a poem by Hughes. Now, the opening line for this poem is, "The celluloid of a photograph holds them well." And it's a poem about anti war. So that's why it was nearly Shakespearean resonance that he worked with. Then moving on. So, and of course, he did that to explore themes which were mythic and elemental. Six Young Men, of course, is an anti war poem, but you'll see how, in certain ways, it has that flair of mysticism. And then, and then, and then there are other poems like, say, The Thought Fox, where he is talking about. Where he's talking about elements in the nature being a metaphor to just about the coming of an idea, or Lydia and the Swan, which is something from the Greek mythology that he's written a whole poem on, which when you read, you're like, but I never thought of Greek mythology this way. So that part. So it's really cool. It's really cool, and I hope that I'm able to do justice to it. And that's why I'm really nervous. And I recorded several lectures before this, and I was not satisfied. And even right now, while recording this lecture, uh, I'm very nervous because I know that no matter what I do, I cannot do justice to somebody like Ted Hughes. Uh, that. Um, Hughes's long career, of course, included unprecedented best-selling volumes such as *The Lupercal* in 1960, *Crow* in 1970. Then there was a selected poetry anthology that was published between 1957 to 1981. Some also say that there's a version available that is up till 1982, but again, not sure about that. And then obviously, the birthday letters. Um, of course, this entire series of lectures is just going to be about Hughes, but the works of Hughes, if you can go in that playlist, and you may find stuff from the birthday letters. And the birthday letters actually is, I think, um, is I think, you know how they say sometimes that plastic does not dissolve for like 100 years or something like that? The birthday letters is that, as a piece of work. Um, if you've ever read it, if you've ever understood it, you won't be able to forget it for the rest of your life. It's that. And obviously, it's a thing written for his, or in correlation to his relationship with Plath. I'll just cut it short because the video is already really long. And then obviously all the work that he's done for children, the Iron Man in 1968. We know how big of a phenomenon how Iron Man is. So he was the person who laid the root to the concept. The rattle bag, the school bag. He was also obviously the executor of Plath's literary estate, which is something really controversial, which we will cover in our next um, lecture. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also press the bell icon to stay updated on whenever a new lecture drops. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I just hope that I am able to do justice to Hughes. Don't forget to do the task, guys, in the link so that you're able to keep track of things and you're able to better understand and comprehend things. Hughes is somebody who can be really complicated to understand, but once and if you're able to understand him, I think you've won a war and a half. And if you're able to understand him, only then will you be able to understand his work properly. Because there are lots of interpretations of his work which will only make sense to you if you know Hughes. And before we end this video, I also wanted to say, do not mix your view of Hughes with criticism on his work, especially in terms of the controversy that surrounds him, whether it's with regards to his first wife or second wife. And of course, that's also a major literary event, especially the death of his first wife, which will always break my heart to speak about.